Hello and welcome to this Monday edition of The Right Stand. Ladies and gentlemen, are we going to just bother and allow our shoulders to droop, or are we going to get our chin up and say we've got to beat this virus? It's that time again when we've got to believe in ourselves and also celebrate the recoveries as much as we mourn the losses. Because the recoveries are a number that we'll be very, very encouraged, because that will give us the belief that we can beat this virus. It may take on various forms and mutant strains, but the fact is that we have the resilience within us, the immunity within us to beat this virus, that is COVID-19. Have a look at these numbers. 2.2 lakh recoveries in the last 24 hours. We can beat it. We can beat it. Big dip in the total number of cases in Mumbai, down from 11,000 odd early April to 3,792 fresh cases. Somewhere is that Janata curfew working, or are all people healing faster? Because there were more than 40,000 tests conducted in Mumbai alone. 14.19 crore plus total vaccine doses administered. It's the fastest worldwide, and we continue to vaccinate at a rapid pace which is now averaging 3 million doses per day. Over 10% of the population have received at least one vaccine dose. That means we've been able to also drastically help bring down the morbidity or the mortality. Zero COVID deaths in the last in the last 24 hours in 5 states and union territories put together. Also, Mission Vaccine 3.0 vaccinations for 18 plus from the 1st of May onwards, and a lot of states have already decided and declared that at their government centers it will be free of cost, and that's what we've got to focus on, ladies and gentlemen. We also have to focus on those who in these times of need have stepped up to help society, to help people. Now have a look at this. In Mumbai, a group of youngsters have stepped up and are doing their bit in the fight against COVID. And this is what they're doing. They're providing water to hospitals and vaccination centers across the city for free for more than a year now. Till date, the volunteers have provided over 1 lakh liters of water to 14 locations across Mumbai. Big salute to them, and we need more good Samaritans to step up and help. In Gujarat, Vadodara, Jewelers Association are also doing their bit in the fight against COVID. They have imposed a self-lockdown in the city, which has started on Sunday and will be in place till the 2nd of May, so one whole week. And more than 500 shops will be shut during this period as they look to break the chain of COVID, and this is done voluntarily. I wish all the people of these jewelers families a safe and a good health to their family members, and hope they are safe. More importantly, when they up their shutters again, they do it in COVID appropriate behavior. They ensure that their customers also follow the same. That's how we can defeat this this virus. In Odisha's Bhubaneswar, Sikh organizations are doing their bit in the fight against COVID at a time when demand for oxygen is high. Sikh aid groups in the city are ensuring oxygen cylinders are provided to those COVID patients who are in home isolation. We've had stories of oxygen langars being held in other parts of the country by Gurudwaras and Sikh organizations who are trying to ensure that everybody gets a little bit of oxygen, and they help supply it to whoever needs it. Big salute to such good Samaritans. In sports, amid the raging debate and criticism over the BCCI confirming that the IPL tournament will continue despite COVID storm, although many also believe that this is required to give people the kind of relief that they get in terms of putting 3 hours and entertainment and family sitting together and watching at a time when there's all doom and gloom around. Pat Cummins today, the Aussie cricketer who is in action as part of the Kolkata Knight Riders in their match against the Punjab Kings today, has donated $50,000 to PM CARES fund for the purchase of oxygen supplies in India's hospitals. Cummins, who is presently in India for 14th season of the Indian Premier League, has also urged fellow IPL cricketers to come forward and help with donations. Big salute to you, Pat. Big salute to that attitude, to that jazba. And I know there are many more people who are quietly doing a lot. Let that tribe grow. That's what we hope and pray for. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as we celebrate those who believe, as we celebrate those who are doing what Bharat is known for, to help everyone and to help heal everyone, the larger question is, the world is also stepping up to help Bharat. But is it humanitarian, or is it coming at a cost? Is it a give and take? And is Bharat's Maitri to the world being reciprocated in that equal spirit and fervor by nations like the United States and the UK? Or are they being absolutely transactional, still thinking in what's in it for me and what is it that I can exact as my pound of flesh from Bharat? Is it time for us to revisit, rethink our foreign policy? Is this second wave and how the world has behaved with India going to force a rethink?
Now the new challenge is, the really big one, is getting enough raw materials. That's why I flagged it to the US and everyone else. Immediately see the ban of raw materials from the US being lifted.
The countries in the world are coming forward to help India, especially America, UK and France.
Now let's understand this. The United States, the United Kingdom and a host of other nations have come out to India's aid over the last couple of days amid rising need for oxygen, vaccines and more. And in what does come across as a turnaround of sorts, the US has decided to deploy resources and supplies to the Serum Institute of India to boost vaccine production and release raw material which is required for the production of Covishield. Now remember Adar Poonawala's outreach around on the 4th or 5th of April on this matter. Also in the pipeline now are diagnostic testing kits, oxygen concentrators and ventilators. Over 300 units have arrived and more on their way. Yes, India appreciates the help. But why after the initial fuss? Is this relationship more about give and take and cold strategic ties? And what place does human empathy have? Is it time for India to actually revisit foreign policy post the second wave? Let's try and look at this. How India made US vaccine, how India made the US given. There were repeated appeals by Adar Poonawala to lift the ban. Remember, he had put out a tweet first week of April, around the 1st or the 2nd itself. And then while speaking to CNN News 18 on the 5th, 6th of April, he said the US has to release it. Otherwise, we can't amp up production. Indians for Indians campaign amid the US diaspora also happened. There was a massive tirade against POTUS and Kamala Harris on social media too, with people questioning where are your Indian roots and your loyalties now. They asked, directly tagging the Vice President. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar's talks with the US State Secretary also happened. And then you had Jaishankar's tweet asking the US to act at the earliest. And NSA Ajit Doval's phone call to his US counterpart Sullivan, that also happened, and after that is when the decision was taken. So when the NSAs talk, then one wonders, this is not a matter of trade. Is there something more beyond that? That is one of the aspects that come to mind. So this entire aspect, is it just a give and take, ladies and gentlemen? And have we got to learn a lesson that in the long term we've got to fend for ourselves? कोई हमारे साथ खड़ा नहीं होने वाला है, हमें खुद करना पड़ेगा. And that is perhaps the reason that you go back to the Prime Minister's call of Atmanirbharta or self-reliance, because we should not be in a position that we have to depend on anybody else. That's for the long term. But in the near future, and of course with ripple effects to the long term, is there going to be a foreign policy rethink as to who our friends are, who our foes are, and who are actually frenemies? Rajiv Chandrasekhar, BJP MP and national spokesperson, joins us as we debate, is the second wave going to force a foreign policy rethink? India fights COVID remains the hashtag. Let's dive into the debate. Rajiv ji, namaste. We've got Ghanshyam Tiwari, Samajwadi Party spokesperson. Dr. Roger Liu, Associate Professor of Flame University is with us. Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar and Sushant Sareen are also with us. Good evening to all of you gentlemen. And as at the outset, I hope you are safe and your loved ones are also safe. If any of them is battling the virus, I believe that they have it in them, the spirit and the spunk to be able to beat this virus hollow. That's what we've got to believe in. Now, I'm going to start with you, Ambassador Sajanhar, because you had a lot of comments to make on America's position. One thing that stands out is the first appeal was made somewhere around the last week of March. We're on the 26th of April. So the US have dragged their feet for more than a month. This is critical time that we have lost. This doesn't look humanitarian. Is it actually humanitarian, or is there more to it than meets the eye?
Well, let me put it this way, Anand. Thank you very much for inviting me. I think the first appeal, really, in terms of the conversation between India and the United States, it went even before that. You would recall that President Biden had invoked this act on the 5th of February, Defense Production Act. Immediately after that, our ambassador Taranjeet Sandhu in Washington, D.C. had taken up the matter. You would recall that on the 12th of March, the first summit meeting of the Quad took place. And when this question was asked to Harsh Shringla, the Foreign Secretary, about sending of these raw materials and inputs from the United States, he said, "We are discussing the matter with the United States. Our ambassador has taken it up, and we should get some results soon." So, the matter is not just a month old. The matter is, in fact, more than 2.5 months old. And the United States should have acted, in my view, much more quickly, with greater alacrity, with greater sensitivity. The real issue, I think, has really come up in the last 1 week, when the COVID-19 cases in India have started rising at such a rapid pace, 300,000 plus cases every day. So I would say that they should have been more proactive, more sensitive. But that having been said, I would also say, Anand, that ours is a global strategic partnership with the United States. It encompasses a large number of areas. Right now, I think they have had to do, in my view, the details could come out later. In my view, there is no quid pro quo as such, as far as these supplies are concerned. I think this would be basically to take care of the issues, the problem, difficulties that India is facing. And we need to sort of, send out this message to them. The message, I think, has already gone out, because you would have seen right from President Biden to Kamala Harris, to Anthony Blinken, to Jake Sullivan, to Lloyd Austin. Every one of them has tweeted, has sent out, and has conveyed the support for India. So I think at the moment there was a delay particularly of about a week, 10 days, when India was really sort of going through this whole issue. But after that, I think the message has come through. This partnership is very strong. It has there is a convergence not only of values, there is a convergence of interests.
Correct.
And there are a large number of interests, and we need to take that forward. Of course, as far as this blip is concerned, have a very candid conversation and tell the United States that if it is seeking global leadership, this is not the way to go about it. If it is seeking alliances to strengthen alliances against what was done by the predecessor, then this is not the way. And India is one of the potential a strong partner, and going forward, we have lots of things to do together.
True, but Ambassador Saab, as I take that to Sushant Shireen, there are a lot of people who question India's large-heartedness as part of its vaccine Maitri. It was unconditional support because of the Gavi Alliance, commitment to WTO and otherwise, where we help nations without setting conditions to them. But that's who we are, that's how we are. But other nations aren't like that. They don't behave like that, especially when you look at a lot of the nations like the US, UK, China, Russia. They will first look at what's in it for me. In this case also, Sushant Shireen, when things have to come to a position where everybody suddenly expresses support after stoic silence of more than 25-30 days, is when the NSAs have spoken. That makes you ask, what do we have to yield for us to get what we actually should have got without having to, ask?
Look, Anand, I don't know. I'm not privy to what we have yielded or what the quid pro quo was, if at all there was any. Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. But I think I would certainly question Ambassador Sajjanhar when he talks about shared values. It's one thing for diplomats to mouth these platitudes of shared values and all of that, when you're just for public consumption. It's quite another thing to actually internalize and believe in this nonsense, because I think this is utter nonsense. Relations between states is not based on any of these values or anything. They're based purely on interest, and Ambassador Sajjanhar is on the money when he talks that there is a certain convergence of interests. I wouldn't even use that in plural. I will just simply say that there is a certain convergence of interest, not interests. And that interest is the C letter word. Uh, the rest of it, for example, what is our convergence of interest in Afghanistan? How much have the Americans taken us on board on what is happening in Afghanistan? How much have they bothered about what the impact of the withdrawal in Afghanistan will have on us? How much have they taken us on board on how they are going to manage or how this region is likely to manage the fallout of what will happen if, God forbid, Afghanistan falls to the Taliban and there are other, despicable characters who make a base out there, which is likely to happen. So they haven't taken us in interest. It was in their interest to withdraw. They decided that that was where their national interest was. Where do the shared values go? Supposing the Taliban take over tomorrow in Afghanistan, what shared values will we have with the Americans? Will there be democracy in Afghanistan? Will be minority rights that are protected? All the highfalutin nonsense which the Americans spouting around the world, all of that will happen insofar as Afghanistan is concerned. And yes, we will use all of that rhetoric, but at the end of the day, it's a purely strategic alignment, and we need to be mindful of that. Rather than, and I've been saying this often enough, that the way we behave in our personal life, that we first want to do rishtedari with somebody, strike a relationship and then do business. Let's just make it a business deal. It's a transactional relationship. The Americans are extremely comfortable in a transactional relationship. Why are we looking for anything more than a transactional relationship? We should stay with a transactional relationship, but we should transact it well. Okay. The other thing is on our large-heartedness.
Right.
Now, frankly, I think the way we approach the world, and I don't, for a second, please, I don't believe in this nonsense of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. I believe in Bharat Kutumbakam, but beyond that, I don't believe in any other Kutumbakam, right? Let's be very clear about that. But we are what we are, and we are not going to change our orientation simply because of what some of the other countries do.
Right.
Now, let us, for a moment, and just give me half a minute on this.
Yeah.
For a moment, let us say that, we were being as selfish. And incidentally, on the American side, we were not asking them to part with any life-saving stuff which they needed to save the lives of their own citizens.
Correct.
We were not asking them for that. We were not putting them in that dharam sankat. We were asking them for something which they could have sold to us. They were not giving it to us gratis.
Yeah.
They could have sold to us and we were buying it. They could have given it to us, without having affected their own vaccination drive, without having to affected their own public health system.
Correct.
And yet they denied it to us. Okay. So that should certainly be a lesson to us about what the Prime Minister calls Atmanirbharta. But I think that's a different topic right now. On the other side, on the rest of the world, there are many countries around the world which would suffer similar kind of apocalyptic scenes that we are witnessing in India. Should we simply let them die? So if, and it's not as though we have taken all our vaccines and given it to them.
Right.
We've given them a fraction of it. Some of it was under contractual obligation, but some of it we've done because we felt it was our duty to reach out to smaller countries which did not have their own thing.
Right.
I think that's a good thing which we did. There was nothing wrong in it. We should continue to do whatever we can and not behave like the selfish white man who only wants to arrogate and then preach, who wants to agglomerate, arrogate everything to himself and then preach to the rest of the world what the white man's burden is.
Correct.
I don't accept the white man's burden. They can go and
got it.
Whatever.
I got it. I get your point, and to a large extent, I do believe and agree with you. But Rajiv Chandrasekhar, is India now going to have to look at how they are going to choose their friends and allies, or treat everyone as a frenemy?
I don't agree with that proposition at all, and I'm inclined to partly agree with Sushant that at the end of the day, every nation develops its strategic relationships based on a sense of reciprocity, a reciprocity of what you give and what you receive. And that is the fundamental basis on which diplomacy and relationships between nations are built. However, I must say this, that I'm not privy to what exactly caused the US administration to do this long pause before they responded as they have responded yesterday. I'm not privy to that. But that has clearly left some sense of unease in people who were tom-tomming the salience and the permanence of an Indo-US relationship. But having said that, the way the president, the vice president, Secretary Blinken, the NSA of the US have responded and highlighted the fact that India did step up in the early days of the COVID and help the US with the HCQ exports and all of that, has at least established the principle, if not of value sharing, as Sushant so dismissively calls it, but at least about the principle of reciprocity, that India has helped the US and India has helped many nations. COVID is a global phenomenon, and this is not something that one country can fight alone, and it is indeed incumbent on a community of nations to work together to handle the pandemic, because this is a global pandemic. Nobody calls it a Chinese pandemic anymore, or an Indian pandemic, or a US pandemic. It is a global pandemic. So I think I would not get into foes, frenemies, friends. At the end of the day, the heart of diplomatic relationships is all about mutual interest, self-interest.
No, but in this case,
and that remains intact. Anand, I don't believe anything has changed in the relationship between India and US. There are many areas that we will cooperate, and I think the Indo-Pac health and COVID is one area that we will cooperate. The reasons for the belatedness, the hesitation, is something somebody will obviously have to write a story in the New York Times or the Washington Post or somewhere else.
No, but it's not about that. The fact is that for one whole month they knew what exactly India wanted, and it was not that Subramaniam Jaishankar asked the US to act just yesterday or day before.
So I'm not aware of why they did that, and I think that's exactly what I said.
Does that also
have to get deep into the Biden administration to figure out why they paused?
No, but does that not turn around and wonder who's actually our friend or ally? Because we know we can't trust the Chinese, the Russians.
What this goes back to what Sushant said. I think the definition of friendship and definition of relationships between nations has to be understood in a slightly more mature sense. It's not about talking about values and things like that. It is about the fundamental premise on which these relationships are built, which is reciprocity. At the end of the day, US has to see value in its relationship with India, as India has to see value in its relationship with the US.
Correct.
I think we have to clearly establish that is the core of any
but right now, what has happened is that this is not something which they are giving to us for free, Ghanshyam Tiwari. We've got to buy these. We've got to buy this raw material, and they stopped the flow of the raw material. When they wanted us to export hydroxychloroquine, we needed the hydroxychloroquine. Despite that, we sent it across because the US bulldozed us and arm twisted us. At all points in time, this is a nation which will look to serve on its own interests, and that is how all the nations are going to behave. So where does that leave us? Is that not a fair question to ask? Do we not need to get to a stage where we don't have any this dependency at all, and we also learn how to play one against the other? We should have played up the Sputnik V and the Russians against the Americans to get them to blink.
Anand, let me at the onset convey my deepest condolences to the thousands who died due to COVID in India today, and every day people are dying, and convey my solidarity and best wishes to nearly 30 lakh people who are active cases and who are recovering. These are tragic times, and I don't think that foreign policy and fundamental change in foreign policy is on the agenda in such times. The key is that whether the head of the state in India, which is the Prime Minister Modi, who has invested a lot of his effort in the last 7 years in foreign policy and his own presence in the foreign policy setup of India, right? Almost personalizing it, right? With his rapport with Donald Trump and other leaders, right? The key is that what is the relationship that his administration has with Biden administration and any other country that India is engaging. The risk of personalizing foreign policy is when you do Ab Ki Baar Trump Sarkar in an election year, you are going to annoy the next president if he is not from the political party that you did Ab Ki Baar Trump Sarkar with. That will play out whether we like it or not. But the fact is that India has at the global stage demonstrated that it can be the pharmaceutical supplier for the entire world. It can supply vaccine, and right now it's not. While the American press and many international press are playing that India has a doomsday scenario. They are also criticizing Prime Minister Modi. But the reality is, any country will crumble at these numbers that we are facing. So to that extent, every Indian must look at their own house, our own house, and not look at what foreign press is saying. The foreign press will praise us when we supply vaccines to the world. They will paint a doomsday scenario without empathetically presenting the point of view of how Indians are facing it, braving it. Right at the very beginning, you showed how a number of people are coming together to support each other, fellow Indians, and the diaspora is coming together. I think that there's no fundamental rethink in foreign policy. I think the Modi administration has to engage in a better way with the Biden administration, given its missteps of personalizing foreign policy in the name of Prime Minister Modi and being an engager in or a participant in the Ab Ki Baar Trump Sarkar campaign. That is what may hurt India.
True, but fact of the matter is that the Ab Ki Baar Trump Sarkar comment by the Prime Minister was in reference to what Trump had said in 2016 and was not an endorsement of 2020, although it's being reflected politically like that, but that was the reality of that speech and what happened there. Setting that aside, Robert Liu, I'm coming to you last, but please tell us, does India need to recalibrate? Is there a rethink where we don't lean towards any particular nation, because nations will only want to exploit? And it reminds me of what the Prime Minister said, Veer Bhogya Vasundhara, only the strong can be talked to. Negotiations will happen only with the strong. If you require something, others will beat you down.
I don't think we should not overinterpret the actions that the United States has taken, because if we remember when the United States that it has to care about its own people's life, actually that's from the mouth of Ned Price, the spokesman of the State Department, and that took place on the same day when the climate summit took place. And after that, the media just took that and just magnify it and say that, this is the U.S. official stance. But I will say that after that, we see that the United States actually changed the official stance really quickly. So we see the communication between the two national security advisors took place right away. And they just laid out the 5 important points, and they reinstate the conclusion reached in the Quad conferences. So I think there must be some miscommunications here. And we have to remember that Biden, Harris are from the left side. So they are not naturally staying on the same side of the BJP government, which is considered to be the right side. So we should not expect the bonomies that will take place between Narendra Modi and Donald Trump. It is not going to happen. But we have to consider the reality that, the Quad framework has been established and it has been working really well. We can see the proof from the last summit that took place between the 4 Quad countries. So we saw this mechanism kick in again, which is demonstrated by the direct communications between the two national security advisors. Please remember this. When Biden started to talk with the world leaders, the first person he talked to was Emmanuel Macron, the French president. Macron, the French president. And his talk with Modi even took place after the talk with Ajit Doval and Jake Sullivan. So politically speaking, Biden and Harris will try to put themselves a little bit away from getting too close to the Modi administration, because they're based back in the US. The Indian Americans are leaning towards the left. So they cannot do that. This is politically detrimental to them, right? Detrimental to them. So they have to keep some distance, at least on the appearance politically. But strategically speaking, I would say that they are quite realistic. They're quite realist. So they have taken that into consideration, and this is what we saw it's happening here. So I don't think we should overinterpret that. I think all the systems are working really well.
Well, you believe that the systems are really working well. Ambassador Sajjanar, I have to wind up, but before I leave with the big questions, does this also imply, and what Sushant Sareen said, that we need to understand this, that we have to become self-reliant and less dependent on anybody else? The faster we realize that, the more we will get into a position where we don't have to lean on or reach out beyond what we are comfortable.
No, absolutely. You see, that is where we are going, but we also need to recognize, Anand, that this is an interdependent world. There are supply chains, and we have to sort of, be in touch with our partners as far as supply chains are concerned. Now, to respond to this question, as I said, there are convergence of interest between India and the United States. There is not only the C word that is convergence of interest. There are many things that United States wants from India. There are many things that India wants from the United States. It doesn't mean that we are going to be congruent. We are going to be convergent on each and every issue. There are going to be differences. Now, by mentioning one or two differences, you say that there is no convergence. I don't think that really stands the test of reason.
Right.
And both the countries have to work together. There are bigger challenges that confront us all around us. Afghanistan is not the only challenge. There are other challenges also, and we have to work together. And there are, I'm glad you also pointed out that this whole thing about Ab Ki Baar Trump Sarkar was not referring to 2020, it was referring only to 2016.
Right.
So I think there are people either knowingly or unwittingly, they are trying to spread this information, this misinformation. So I think we need to be clear about this.
Right.
India is principally working on protecting its own interests, and that is what it is taking forward. That is why we see that all these relations all around the world, countries have come out, and unstintingly they are coming in to help India deal with this particular
but the fact of the matter is,
catastrophe.
Sir, final word, and I've got just 1 minute. So Sushant Sarin, you put your hand up, so I'm going to go across. Because the Japanese Prime Minister talks about Quad, Australia hints about Quad, the US hints about Quad and strategic part. At a time when all that India is asking is just release the embargo on raw materials and we're going to buy it from you. That's what you're telling the US. So there is more in terms of trade. The US wants something. They did a military activity off the Andaman and Nicobar without informing the Indians, the Indian side. That's also something which we have seen. There is a certain level of flexing of muscle which is happening. And this is something which I cannot as a citizen ignore. My point is that nations like the US cannot be held to account when they hold other nations and their people to ransom. And that's not a happy position to be.
Anand, even on the FONOPS exercise which they did, they used to do it in the past. It used to be kept quiet. This time they deliberately made a bit of a show and dance about it. So quite clearly they were trying to shaft us on that. Number one. Number two, okay, I can understand their political compulsion, but then we have our own political compulsions. And on the issue of divergences, Afghanistan is not the only divergence we have. On a range of other issues, the American ask of us, for example, on climate change is much more than the American give on climate change.
Yeah.
So clearly there are major issues. On the Quad, yes, I've been been an advocate of the Quad.
Yeah.
But not because I want to become an American satellite state, but because I think it's in my interest.
Yeah.
My only issue is that I need to negotiate and I need to deal with the Americans purely at a transactional level and make
Correct.
sure that I get the better of the deal. And one last point,
Jake.
because we are talking about the Quad, wasn't it decided in the Quad summit meeting that India will serve as the vaccination hub of the world?
Exactly.
If you deny us all the raw materials that we need as part of that particular effort, then everything you decided in the Quad meeting was for nothing. It meant nothing.
Exactly. That is exactly the point that I'm trying to make, where I'm trying to say that what was actually agreed upon and what the US actually said will do and what they are actually doing is different. And how is it that we are going to work this out? Because we have to also, like you said, the negotiation or the argument or the deal making has to be on our terms. Not at a term where we get something, but they take a lot more and they exact a far greater pound of flesh in terms of what we are doing. And that's why I'm saying is this going to force a rethink on foreign policy, because this is not going away. COVID is not going to go away. Challenges which are going to come to the forward in terms of security issues are not going to go away. At various levels, what we are doing today as a nation depends on how strong we are as a nation too. There are many levels to this. And that's why I was just trying to peel it one by one before we get to the crux of the matter. And the crux of the matter goes back to the fact that we need to be self-reliant. I thank you all. I just leave you with 4 or 5 questions before we take a short break. One is, why do we need NSA level talks for the US to agree to release vaccine raw material? Relations based only on give and take? Cold strategy versus humanities. Is it time for India to recalibrate ties and also very clearly reassess and understand how we are going to deal with certain nations and with certain equations? And attaining Atmanirbharta, is that the only real solution going forward when we are less dependent or not dependent on anybody else? That seems to be the only solution, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take a very, very short break. When we come back, we will be joined by voices in public life who have beaten the virus, who have got the better of COVID-19, who will join us to tell you how to beat this virus if it is knocking on your doorstep. Stay with us.